Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in. And today we're continuing the theme of the channel because, as you've probably noticed, I've got quite an interest in neo-vintage watches. Out of the watches that I own, probably only one or two are watches from the last 20 years. So the vast majority of my collection these days are watches from the 80s and early 90s. For me, that's the absolute sweet spot, and I love collecting pieces that are slightly smaller, have a little bit of patina, a lot more character, and I think are just an incredible price point in the market today to buy really interesting pieces that you just don't see every day for not very much money. And I think I've got two that you're going to love today. So today we're going to talk about two-tone pieces available to buy for under £3,000. Actually, I paid £2,100 for this Blancpain, and I paid £2,200. This is actually a full set, this one, so the Blancpain was watch only. The £2,200 Ebel sportwave chrono. So we've essentially got two pieces available for significantly under £3,000, enough buffer there to put yourself a nice service on top of these watches. Now, what have we got? Let me talk you through these two watches, and let me explain why I think each of these offer two ends of the spectrum for collectors. They offer great diversity in a collection, but also share some amazing common themes which personify that 80s, early 90s collector's era that I think is just gaining momentum at the moment with collectors. Let's start with the newer watch, the Blancpain. So, I'm not going to go into the history of Blancpain. There are plenty of videos on that, and I'll probably do one myself later. But as we know, in the 80s, Mr. Villeret completely reignited the brand of Blancpain. So it has on the dial here 1735. Now, is it really the brand that we can say was originated in 1735? There's lots of debate about that, because essentially Mr. Villeret bought the rights, started afresh, went into partnership with the well-known movement maker FPGA, which he makes movements for Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin, fantastic movements, right? And there's an interesting debate about whether the Blancpain FPGA relationship actually almost means that these Blancpains have an in-house movement, because Piguet and Villeret were just kind of essentially one when they created this Blancpain reinvigorated brand. But for the sake of argument, let's say that Blancpain do not have an in-house movement, and this is an FPGA movement. What we have here is one of Villeret's first models that was launched under this new Blancpain brand. So these watches started coming to hit the scene about 1984. This one dates from 1987, and it's number 1146 on the back. So not an early edition, but you know, we're not talking into the kind of 3,000 or 4,000 numbers. This is a fairly kind of mid-run piece. What I love about this is it's incredibly slim. So when this was launched, this was the slimmest complete calendar complication that hit the market. So it was already groundbreaking when they launched this particular watch. It's so stunning. Villeret's entire definition of what Blancpain should be was that it was not ever going to launch a quartz watch. So everything they did focused on the beauty, complication, watchmaking tradition of Blancpain, and therefore this particular watch, the complete calendar, features the moon phase, the day, the date, and the month. Now, I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but Villeret didn't do this by accident. So he wanted these complications to showcase the incredible art of watchmaking. No quartz watch at the time could perform the kind of complication that this watch could. So this was a statement from Villeret saying, look, quartz is all well and good, fine, but if you want art, if you want horology, if you want kind of class and status, there's still a place for automatic movements. And what's interesting is that over the last, 20 years, right, Blancpain have just not been appreciated by collectors. People like Ben Dunn over at Watch Brothers London are really reinvigorating the oomph behind neovintage and Blancpain in particular. Same with Ebel, but I'll come on to that in a minute. Essentially, if you're buying a Blancpain, you're losing money as soon as you walk out the showroom. The residuals on them are terrible. And this particular watch for £2,100 is just an incredible buy, right? It's quite slim, 35.5mm. So for those of you with bigger wrists, I wouldn't say walk away because it's just so elegant. Now, what I love about it is actually not the complication. The complication is useful. I love the moon phase. I love watches with moon phases. But what I love is bracelet. This bracelet is just amazing. So this was built by a very, very famous bracelet and jewellery maker called Gay Freres, which were bought by Rolex in about 2009, 2010. And they made bracelets for the Royal Oak, for example. So they were specialists in integrated bracelets, and this is just amazing, the way this bracelet is built. It's so detailed. And to get a Blancpain complete calendar like this, and the complete calendar is essentially a triple calendar. So it's not an annual calendar, so it doesn't process the number of days on a particular month. You have to self-select when you get to the end of a month that doesn't have 31 days, with the pushers on the side to move it forward to the first of the month, and you have to move the month forward once as well. The moon phase will continue around the 29.5-day cycle, irrespective of days in the particular month, but you do have to use the pushers to move the date on for those months of the year that have not got 31 days. It will assume every month has 31 days. So I'm blown away by this. For £2,100, I think this is just the steal of the decade at the moment. So much history, so much charm, so wearable at 35.5mm. If you haven't got a dress watching collection, you're not that interested in the kind of slightly boring Calatravas or, JLCs, which I have one, right? So I can be honest about them. They are dull. I put them on and I get bored wearing just gold, or if it's platinum or rose gold or something, fine. But simple dress watches just don't really do it for me. I need something to kind of keep me interested in a watch. I get a little bit bored with the kind of classical designs of pure dress watches, which is why I think this Blancpain is just a fantastic option. The two-tone makes it quite dressy. It's not a steel sporty watch. Because you've got those gold accents and the gold numerals around the dial, it makes it something that's a little bit different and a little bit more dressier. So if you're interested in acquiring a vintage watch, please look out for these. Now the next one is another fantastic era-defining bracelet. This Ebel Sport Chrono is just so cool. So whereas we had a smaller case size on the Blancpain, a very thin case, a beautiful moon phase on the dial, and lots going on in terms of the month and the day of the week, the Ebel takes a very different approach, but still brings you back to two-tone, fantastic watchmaking with an El Primero movement, and just this bracelet is just the most beautiful thing ever, right? What I love about these Ebel Sportwaves is the whole story around Rolex Daytona using the Zenith movement started here with this watch. This watch did it first. There's a El Primero in here. Ebel bought the job lot from Zenith in the attic, the old story that we all love. They were in Ebel's before they were in Rolexes, before they were in anything else. Ebel saw the incredible potential of that movement, bought them all. The original Sportwave chronos that you can still go and buy for £2,000 or so have those movements in them that were bought as a job lot from the attic in the Zenith factory. I mean, isn't that just incredible? I just can't get my head around it, and they're so cheap. Anyway, this one is from 1987, so exactly the same year as this one. And it doesn't have the original El Primero movement. It has the 40.0 caliber, which then became the 400 caliber. It was slightly improved, but essentially sparked the new production from Zenith of the El Primero movement. So, what do you get on this? You get a chronograph. You don't get that on the Blancpain. And what you do get is a more modern set of dimensions. So you're talking now about a 39mm case. You're talking a little bit more weight and a little bit more thickness. So the Blancpain is way under 10mm. We're probably looking at about 8mm for the Blancpain. This Ebel is probably looking at about 12. So you've got a little bit more thickness on the wrist. You've got a little more weight to it, particularly on the precious metal Ebels. They really are quite hefty. And what you've also got is just this incredible design, where I love the way that Ebel used this kind of asymmetrical case, and you see screws just everywhere on these Ebels. You've got the kind of Genter-esque screws on the top of the case, and on the crown itself has a big kind of flathead screw mark on it. And just everywhere is just on the back of the case, the way the strap is secured to the case, screws. Everything is just so well built and put together. The slogan for Ebel is the architect of time, and you can tell that what they wanted to build was just something solid and, you know, robust. Still feels it today. Still feels just so well put together. I just absolutely love these. What I really think is interesting is the way that Ebel used the gold accent around the subdial of this sport chrono. Rolex did that on the Daytona. And I love that about my Daytona, the way that when you get a glimmer of light flickering through and you just see those subdials just light up because they just put a little bit of gold around the edge of them. Ebel did it first. Ebel had the movement. El Primero. Ebel had the subdial design. Rolex lost the date and they slowed down the frequency. Ebel didn't. And I actually hated that about the Daytona, the fact it didn't have a date. It really frustrated me. The fact that this has one is definitely a tick in the Ebel's box. Now then, when it comes down to it, which one would I take? I actually did a little blog on Watch Crunch, if any of you remembers on there, so check it out. But I was really surprised that most people were after the Blancpain. Most people thought that this is the watch they would go for when given the choice. There were a few die-hard Ebel fans like me that were probably tending more towards this one, but the Blancpain seemed to be the favourite there. Now, if you're asking me which one to take, I think I'd take the Blancpain as well, you know. Mainly because I have a couple of other Ebels, so this itch is kind of scratched elsewhere. Really tough call. Anyway, I really hope you found this useful, but ultimately I really hope I've ignited the interest in some neo-vintage Blancpain and Ebel watches for you, and I hope that you can see that for the value we've got two incredible watches with some of the best movements in the world in, integrated bracelets essentially, which are era defining. This bracelet on the Blancpain is, you've got to try it. It's incredible. It's incredibly well built. And this sportwave chrono bracelet is just the most amazing thing. It's like a kind of snake skin or something. It's just amazing. Please let me know if you have any other comments, and if you do watch this video and then go on the hunt for an Ebel or Blancpain, please do let me know, because I really want to keep in touch with all of you neo-vintage collectors and hopefully keep providing you content and some interesting finds that sit within that kind of £2,000 to £5,000 price bracket. So stay tuned and happy watch hunting. Thanks everyone.